It is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker tonight. We are honored to have Dr. Kevin Snyder here tonight as our special guest. Kevin's own experience battling mental health started when he was just 12 years old, when he was diagnosed with depression and an eating disorder that literally almost took his life. His journey to recover inspired him with a desire to raise awareness about mental health, and most of all, to help others, especially our young folks. While his professional career started on college campuses, Kevin soon felt a calling to share his story way beyond that, to the classroom, and then beyond that, when his passionate pursuit of research, speaking, and writing truly began. He has authored several best-selling books, one of which you guys are all going to receive as a gift that Kevin has personally autographed tonight. Please join me in giving a rousing and inspiring welcome to Dr. Kevin Snyder.
Look around. Look at your table for just a moment. Look at the influence and power and change that we all have. Would you agree with that? That's why we're here tonight, right? Preach it. As I was thinking of remarks that might be meaningful for you tonight, this is a different type of presentation than I normally give. It's very story-driven for a reason. And a little of it for me, to be honest with you, is a little painful. Because sometimes I still struggle. But I talk about it. Mother Teresa is credited with saying, "I alone cannot change the world. But I can cast a stone to create a ripple." Yes? And the ripple effect has brought me to you tonight. I would not be in front of you tonight if it weren't for a TEDx talk that I delivered late last fall, where I finally felt it was time for me to open up and talk about my own struggles growing up. I'm a motivational speaker, yet I never talked about my struggles. And the TEDx talk that I delivered it in the manner I intended to be purely raw. The book that you'll get tonight is called Pure Vulnerability, for a reason. And when I delivered the talk, it actually got banned from the TED gods. They said it was too sensitive. And my reply to them was, that's exactly why you need to post it. Because awareness defeats stigma. Yes? And stigma is the number one barrier to people receiving treatment. So as I was waiting for them to, and I prayed on, and as I was waiting patiently for them to post it, long story short, I decided, you know what? I'm going to get my publishing team to be prepared to promote this talk. And I wrote a book on it, the book that you'll get tonight. I prepared them to promote it as the talk they did not want you to see. And when we got close to launching it, they actually did post it, and I was relieved. And that's when the ripple effect and the flywheel took effect, because somebody forwarded it to somebody, who forwarded it to Van. Let's give a shout out to Van. Who forwarded it to Shelley. Let's give a shout out to Shelley. I've spoken for a lot of different organizations and a lot of different foundations. You're not going to find a more passionate, mission-driven person than Shelley. You're not. Sorry, you're not. And when Shelley reached out to me, she didn't know where I lived. Who are you? Where can we meet? Can we talk on Zoom? I'm like, better yet, let's meet at Sola Coffee off Lead Mine Road in Raleigh. And what started off as an early coffee easily led into lunch. If you know Shelley, yes, and if you know me, for sure. But that is the ripple effect. And I knew then, and I'll share something at the very end of my short remarks. I'll share why it's not just that, but there's more to the foundation of hope that matters so much for me that connected the dots on why I knew that conversation was the most important conversation I would have. And I wanted to do everything in my power to advocate and support any initiative that the Foundation of Hope is doing. That's why I'm in front of you today. But the ripple effect led me to you. But we are the ripple. We are the ripple. All of you are the ripple. And we have a chance and opportunity not only to talk about mental health, but literally to save lives. I'm living proof. And this is where my story gets a little painful, and I hope I will keep it together a little bit, but I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky to be alive. I'm blessed, I'm grateful. I remind myself of that. I grew up in a very loving family. I grew up in Durham. Anybody from Durham? Yeah. Anybody heard of Durham? But I have an older brother and a younger sister. My mom was a teacher at Northern Durham High School. My dad was a preacher. Clapping for one of those, okay? So, middle kid, preacher's kid. Double whammy, right? And looking back at just 12 years old, I did have a couple of things that triggered me. I still don't know the cause, but some things happened, certain life circumstances where I found out my best friend was with my girlfriend behind my back. I made some poor decisions, stopped showing up for soccer practice, got kicked off the soccer team, which soccer was all I did as a kid growing up. So within just a short period of time, I lost basically the three things that mattered to me as a 12-year-old boy. My girl, my best friend, and a sport that I loved. And I didn't cope well. I didn't know how to cope. And later I'd find out that in my family there is a history of mental health and depression. So I was basically a loaded gun, waiting to go off. And I stopped eating. I withdrew from everything. My mom and dad knew there was a problem. They didn't know how to help, what to do. And frankly, I was good at masking it. If any of you have kids, you know they're pretty smart with masking what might be going on, what people cannot see. And that's a struggle with mental health. It's what we don't see. And you don't have to be diagnosed with a mental health condition to struggle with mental health. Right? I stopped eating. I lost a lot of weight. I was in a dark spiral. Long story short, my mom pulled me out of school one day to go visit the doctors. And that was when the doctors had to huddle with other doctors because they didn't know what to do. As you heard Van and Shelley say earlier, for me, this was specifically 1988. The doctors admitted, when they came back in the room, they looked at my mom as if I was not even there. And they said, and I don't remember much during this dark period of my life, but I remember them looking at my mom as if I was not there, as if I was invisible, saying to her, "We've never treated an adolescent boy with depression. We don't know what to do." And we thought eating disorders only occurred in girls. My friends, we've come a long way, yes? But do we still have a ways to go? That's why we're here. And I'm not going to say or suggest to you my recovery was fun, but I knew then I had a choice between life or death. And because I'm a mama's boy and I love my mom, I love my dad too, but I knew then that if I didn't make a choice to get better, or at least seek help, I didn't have a chance. And as I gained some of the weight back, I may have looked as if I was okay and normal. But I didn't feel normal on the inside. I felt anything but. And I carried a lot of that with me. I actually bumped into somebody tonight who I haven't seen since high school. People don't know this story who know me from back then. But I carried all this with me to college, thinking I could forget it, thinking I could move on, thinking, wow. But I carried it with me because I didn't talk about it. And I struggled my first year of college. I went to UNC Wilmington. Do I have any Seahawks? And I try to do that with my speeches. But I struggled my first year. I kept my bags packed. I tried to drop out several times, but the dean of students, Dr. Dean Terry Curran at UNC Wilmington back in 1994, every time I went to his office with a withdrawal form, Dean Terry would look at me and say, Kevin, I'm required to sign this, but I don't want to for you. What do you need? How can we help? And Dean Terry Curran just simply cared. He cared. And he would always say to me, what can we do? Give me 2 more weeks before you make a life-changing decision that you might regret. And one of the recommendations he gave me was, get involved on campus, meet some people. And so, my sophomore year, I threw a Hail Mary. I joined a fraternity. Because I met some cool guys at the gym. And it was recruitment week at the Golden Corral. Free food. But these guys talked about truth, courage, faith. They just seemed a little bit different. And I knew them prior. Long story short, which I've said a few times, I joined this fraternity. And at the Brotherhood annual campfire retreat, envision this, 30 guys who I barely knew. And in that moment of what I call nothing else but pure vulnerability, I shared with them this story about my history with depression and having anorexia. I felt called. There's something in that moment, almost like this moment with you. And I expected them to kick me out because I was a fraud, an imposter. But what do you think happened? They came up to me afterward, thanking me, giving me these chest bumps of brotherly affection. True sign of brotherhood. But more importantly, in the days and even weeks after that, these other 18, 19-year-olds would come up to me on campus and just say, hey man, thanks bro. I'm struggling too.
Keep it real. Keep it real.
And my story, which is why I'm driven to share my story now, is because you never know who might be struggling.
Amen.
And none of us are alone. We are all on this together. So that experience for me was the beginning that really transformed my whole college career. I went from near dropout to a 4.0 fraternity man of the year, homecoming king UNCW, or even Dean Terry Curran set me up with an interview with the director for admissions for UNCW to give campus tours, telling prospective students and parents how awesome the university was. So when I graduated UNCW with a degree in marine biology, obviously, I knew that I was going to pursue a career in student affairs. I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that I was going to pursue being like somebody like Dean Terry Curran to support any student that may need a little extra help. And as I pursued different positions, I was a director of orientation, a director of student activities. I worked at several different colleges as I was also pursuing my master's and my doctorate. I lived my dream. I achieved what I thought was my dream. I achieved it. In 2010, I became the Dean of Students at High Point University. I was a young dean. They were looking for a young dean. But catch this. I never talked about my story with my students. And even in my research for my doctorate degree, it was a qualitative research dissertation on self-efficacy, which is your belief systems that you can achieve desired results. And my focus was on first-generation college students, trying to understand what was it about the students who persisted that made them successful. And when I interviewed them, hearing their stories of strength, of persistence, I was so just amazed. But yet I still felt like a fraud because I never shared mine. Because I felt for some reason, if they knew that I struggled, for some reason they would not respect me or think I was an imposter. I never shared with them. And I look back at those moments. I don't have any regrets in my life because everything has led me to this moment right here. If I changed anything about my past, it would change this moment. I do not want to change this moment. I don't have any regret. But I do look back and wonder how many more students could I have impacted during my tenure there. But I was presenting at a conference for a keynote to share some of my research findings because they thought it was pretty cool. I did too at the time. And in that speech, I went a different direction. I felt a moment like that campfire with my fraternity. I felt a moment where I opened up and shared my story of depression, of my eating disorder, and my imposter syndrome that I had had most of my professional career, never feeling good enough, with 1,000 strangers I didn't even know. And I expected them to boo me off stage. I literally expected the meeting planner who hired me to ask for the money back. And after that speech, still to this day, it was the longest line I've ever had with people waiting to chat with me, thanking me, some with tears in their eyes, sharing their stories, and just feeling hope that they weren't alone. And I'll never forget waking up to an email the next morning. From a young lady named Kelly. And Kelly shared with me, well, first off, she said, I didn't want to go to your speech. And then she says, I came to this conference to take my own life, and I had a plan. And I was going to do it during your speech. Because my plan was so that nobody else could stop me. But what happened was one of her roommates at this hotel where I was speaking had forgotten something in their hotel room and had come back into the room to get it, finding Kelly. And they literally pulled Kelly out of that room, not even knowing that they were saving Kelly's life. And I'm just the messenger. But when Kelly heard my story in that speech where I opened up, Kelly, for the first time, found hope. She felt not alone. And she found will to get treatment. Kelly is now a guidance counselor at high school. How cool is that? So, I'll land this plane here in a minute. Hold this minute. That moment, I credit Kelly. Kelly is why I also knew I had to share my story. Not to just share it, but to use it. To use it for good, to reframe my story, to give it new meaning and purpose that can help change lives. I am just the messenger.
Yeah.
But all of us are. That's why we're here tonight. When I met with Shelley at Solo, coffee. That morning, I woke up very early. And I trusted my gut. I said, I'm going to do a little bit more digging on the foundation of hope. I thought this was just going to be a nice conversation. We're, blah, blah. And then I find out, after doing some research on their website, the story, the history of the foundation. The first year of the Walk for Hope was the first year that I started receiving treatment as a 12-year-old. Then I looked at the UNC School of Psychiatry to see who are some of the faculty, who are some of the people that are on the professional staff. One of those people is the counselor that I met with, who saved my life. There are no coincidences. I'm going to do everything in my power to support this foundation. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Van. Thank you, all the staff and people. I mean, it's amazing. I guess the last thing I'll say is I'm a father to a 4 and a 2-year-old right now. Who I know have a genetic disposition to mental health. I'm aware of that. It's on my mind constantly. And I wonder, might one of them struggle like I did? And how can I protect them? By better understanding mental health, by research. And that's why I am so thrilled to hear about the new CHAMPS program that the Foundation of Hope is putting together. Child and Adolescent Anxiety and Mood Disorders program, which focuses on adolescents and young adults and their families. I'm just so honored to be with you tonight. I hope if I've shared anything with you that has meaning, use it. I'm just the messenger.
Yes.
I alone cannot change the world. We together can. Thank you.
He signed a book for everybody. We're going to have dancing and everything going on, but right now, I want to introduce our auctioneer all the way from the great state of Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jason Lamoureux.
Thank you, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with each and every one of you here tonight to support the Foundation of Hope.